I remember this story like it was yesterday. I live a fairly normal but boring life. I get home from work around 10:30 p.m. every night. More often than not, by the time I get home, my wife is already sleeping. The only time I get to spend with her most weeks were on Saturdays, because usually Saturday would be my only day off. When I would get home from work, typically I would get myself something to eat and watch TV. If I wasn't doing that, I would be on my computer playing games or just browsing the web. I was playing this game with my buddy Daniel on this particular night. I don't remember what made us start talking about it, but at some point we began talking about the dark web. You see, I had heard about the deep web before this, but I didn't know much about it. I've heard tons of bad things about it though. He began telling me all about it and I became really interested. He told me how to access it, and that in order to get onto the dark web, I first had to download something called the Tor browser. After we were done playing video games, I started researching and reading more about the dark web online. I even went as far as looking up on YouTube how to access it. My wife randomly woke up to use the bathroom while I was still on the computer, and she asked me if I was coming to bed. I told her I would be there in a minute. I took that as a cue that she wanted me to come to sleep with her, so I got off the computer shortly after and decided that I would do some more research about it the next day. So that's exactly what I did. The very next day after work, I got home and I jumped right on the computer. My wife was asleep, so I had all the time in the world. The curiosity was just killing me. I finally managed to get myself on the dark web. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I needed to be careful, and I remembered what Daniel told me. He told me to not trust anyone on there and to especially not click any sketchy links. I was looking around for quite some time and I came across some pretty crazy sites. I won't bore you to death with everything, I just want to get right into what happened. I'm sure most of you know the kind of things you can expect to find on the dark web anyways. I was on this one website in particular where you can buy all sorts of illegal weapons, and when all of a sudden I clicked what I thought was going to be the next page of listings showing all the other weapons. But it wasn't. It took me to a whole new website and it opened up a new tab on my computer. Somebody started messaging me out of the blue, and right off the bat they were being hostile. They started telling me they were going to find me and that I had to stay and talk to them. We exchanged some more messages back and forth, and I wasn't putting up with this guy's BS. I figured he was just some dumb kid on the internet trying to be tough. They threatened me and said they will kill me and my family if I don't send them money. Now of course, that pissed me off and I started messaging them back, telling them that they didn't want a problem with me, and that them joking around wasn't funny. The anonymous person then sent me a message of my address and my real name. It was at this point I seriously started freaking out. He told me if I logged off and tried to exit the chat, he would make sure my family gets, and I quote, what they have coming to them. He then said he was going to hack my computer and put disgusting and disturbing images of children on my computer, and that if I didn't listen to him, I would regret it. He was asking for $2,000 worth of Bitcoin. Of course I didn't want to pay up, but I felt like I had no choice. Nonetheless, I tried to close out of the dark web and the Tor browser altogether, but it wouldn't let me. He hacked my computer somehow, so I did the next best thing. I unplugged my computer from the wall, which of course turned my computer off immediately. I then turned the computer right back on, and as soon as I got to the main screen, a bunch of pop-up images kept displaying on my computer over and over again. No matter how many times I tried to exit out of them, more and more would pop up before I would have the chance to keep up with closing out of all the messages. I don't even want to talk about what I saw, I'm just going to let you use your imagination. These pop-up messages contained very graphic and disturbing pictures. I literally started puking my guts up and I started having a very serious panic attack. Then the sound of a chat request popped up. It was him again, the person I was speaking to earlier. He told me that I needed to send the money over or that things were going to get a lot worse. I seriously debated doing it, but I couldn't get myself to. As much as I wanted it to be over with, I just couldn't. I couldn't trust him. Who's to say he would actually leave me alone anyways if I sent him the money? I unplugged my computer again, and I legit never logged back onto it again after that. This happened almost a decade ago, and it's the most disturbing and disgusting thing that has ever happened to me in my whole life. I reported the situation to the police, but the cops couldn't do anything about it. They seized my computer and never returned it back to me. I don't live in that same house anymore either, but my family and I lived there for almost 2 years after that situation. No one ever showed up that tried to hurt us or anything. Well, not that I know of anyways. There were a few unexplainable things that happened though. There were multiple nights where my wife and I would hear someone knocking on the door or even our bedroom window in the late hours of the night. We never saw anybody though. I'm not sure if it had anything to do with that sick man who was harassing me on the dark web, or if it was just some random kids messing with us, like ding-dong ditching or whatever. To this day, I still have no idea. I used to visit the dark web frequently. One night I was on there looking around, just browsing the different sites out of boredom. I stumbled upon this chat room where I met this dude named Andrew. Andrew and I ended up talking for a while and we actually became pretty good friends. For months we would chat daily about random stuff that normal friends would talk about. We would send funny videos and memes to each other all the time. He was just an internet friend of mine and we got along quite well. Well, it was just another average night of me messing around on the computer and talking to Andrew and some other friends I met on the dark web. Then I noticed that Andrew sent me a link. I clicked the link not thinking much of it at all with a big smile on my face, probably expecting to see a dumb meme video or something. Well, it wasn't a meme at all. Try something about 1,000 times more sinister and disturbing. What I saw is still incredibly hard to this day to get out of my head, especially now that I'm talking about it. The link brought me to this live video in which there was a woman who was tied up, completely naked, and a grown man with a black mask whom I assumed kidnapped her. There were over 200 other people watching this live video stream. The man in the mask then asked everybody who was watching the stream to vote how he should kill her. The options were burning her to death, putting her in boiling hot water, cutting of all the limbs until bled out, or by gunshot. The man ended up boiling her to death. I took my phone out and started recording, all while trying my best to look away from the screen. I have never felt panic like that in my life. I was of course freaking out, and naturally I wanted to capture it on video with my phone to show the police. I wanted to look away while it was happening, but every time I did, I would find myself peeking back at the screen. It was extremely hard to watch, and I think seeing it damaged me in some way mentally. But it was just one of those things that I couldn't get myself to fully look away. It's hard to explain. Eventually I couldn't stomach it anymore, and I exited off the dark web and turned my computer off completely. I even unplugged it from the wall. Called my best friend that I knew in real life to tell him about what happened, and he encouraged me to not call the police. He told me that I would risk getting in trouble if I went to the police, even though I didn't do anything wrong technically, and that I could get into trouble for just witnessing the situation. I was already having my doubts about calling the police in the first place, so I chose not to get the cops involved. I'm not sure if they would have been able to do anything anyways, looking back on it. I also wasn't sure if Andrew was the one that was behind all of this, but I'll probably never know, because I haven't been on the dark web ever since that whole ordeal. I don't know if he purposely sent me that link, or if he got hacked or something, but I wasn't risking it. It just goes to show you that you never know who you're talking to on the internet, and to be extremely careful on any layer of the internet, especially the dark web. Before I get into this story, I just want to warn you that some of what you are about to hear is extremely disturbing and vile. Listen at your own risk. Most people don't believe me when I tell them this story, but I can assure you that everything I'm about to tell you is 100% authentic. This was my experience on the dark web. This story took place at least 7 or 8 years ago. I was visiting the dark web, or the deep web, or whatever you prefer to call it, for my first time. I always knew about all of the bad stuff on there, and that's kind of what intrigued me. My friend John was the person who told me about the dark web. He sparked my interest in it when he told me about all of the crazy things you could find on there. I remember him telling me about how you could find hitmen on the dark web, and people that can hack into almost anything that you want. Of course, for money that is. They offer a service, if you will, and I was told you could literally find basically anything you wanted to find on the dark web. I've never seen anything like this myself, but John also told me about how there was a site on there that would strictly show videos of people getting killed and sexually assaulted. But there is much worse on there than that, believe it or not. Luckily, I didn't see these kind of things, but I believe I was almost a victim of kidnapping and sex trafficking. I was scrolling upon this site that sold illegal drugs and weapons that you could purchase through Bitcoin. This website was insane. They had any type of weapon you could imagine. Anything from small knives, all the way to a damn rocket launcher. I wasn't into that sort of thing, I was just really checking it out because it was super intriguing to me. All of a sudden, my computer froze. I wasn't sure what to think, other than that it was only a coincidence. I didn't think anyone hacked my computer or anything crazy just yet. I restarted my PC and went back to the same website, and I got a message, or like a pop-up notification that came up on my screen that told me to leave the site, and that I wasn't welcome. I thought it was just spam or some dumb AI or a virus, so I continued scrolling, and within 30 seconds or so, another message popped up on my screen. Only this time it was my address. I froze in fear for I don't know how long, and my mouth dropped to the floor. I immediately turned my PC off and started taking deep breaths. After that, I vowed to never go back on the dark web again, truthfully. I didn't realize it was that dangerous. About a week goes by, and as I'm getting ready for my day, I took a step outside to go and check the mail. When I got to the end of my long driveway, at the end of the road to peek in my mailbox, couldn't help but notice somebody peering at me in the distance. This was in broad daylight and it was still creepy. I live on a dirt road and all of the houses are far and few in between. I gave him a precarious smile and a friendly wave and headed back inside. When I got back inside, I looked out of my main room window and the man was now at the end of my driveway staring at me right where I was previously standing before I spotted him. He then waved and continued walking. It was extremely creepy and by now I was super on edge. I then sorted through my mail and I found that someone unknown had sent me something. I opened it up and what I saw was absolutely petrifying. There were dozens of pictures of me doing various things. Some of them were of me in my own home. Most of them were taken at night. There were pictures of me making dinner, sitting on my couch in the living room, even pictures of me in the bathroom that were zoomed into my private areas. There were pictures of me driving, pictures of me at the grocery store shopping. I mean, you name it. I had someone stalking me. I started to freak out as any normal person would, and I spoke to some of my friends about what was happening, and they all agreed I should call the police. I wasn't against that at all, but I was just in such a weird headspace, and time got a hold of me, and before you knew it, it was already late. I called my friend Matthew over to come hang out because I lived alone at the time. Having a friend over helped me feel a bit better about the situation I was in. He thought I was crazy for not calling the police, but I didn't want to just yet. As scared as I was, I knew if I called the police, they wouldn't have been able to do anything really. I wanted to catch this guy myself, red-handed. I ended up setting up surveillance cameras all around my house the very next day. Fast forward around midnight, my friend was sleeping and I was half asleep on the recliner when all of a sudden, I splurged out of my seat because of the loud sound of my living room window being shattered, sent us both into fight or flight mode. Instinctively, we both ran over to the window and looked outside, but we didn't see anybody. At this point, we knew we had to call the police, so that's exactly what we did. My true fears became a reality though when the cops arrived, and I saw that there was nothing they could do. I gave the most amount of detail I could that I knew about the man that sketched me out beforehand when I was checking the mail, because any potential lead would help. The man was long gone before the cops showed up on scene though, of course. And the man was dressed up in some sort of black body morph suit or costume, so we had no chance of making out what he looked like. After that, I stayed anywhere but the house I was renting until I could officially move into a new apartment. That was all I could afford at the time. I really think he would have killed me otherwise. I've heard tons of horror stories about the dark web and crazy kidnapping scenarios since, and I vowed to myself to never lurk on the dark web ever again after that.